I think that we should start, and hopefully we'll have some people joining. Obviously, if we had done something about religion, maybe it's the way of attracting a large audience here in this place. Anyhow, I'm really happy that we are here with two authors who have been shortlisted for the EUPL. And maybe just, two words about what is the prize. I think most of you in the audience know what it is, but nevertheless, let me remind you that it's a prize that covers 41 European countries, and that rewards new voices in literature with authors. They don't have to be young, but they have to have written between 2 and 4 books of fiction. Because there are 41 authors, you can imagine that we are not able to do it on a yearly basis all over Europe, so we have to do it on a 3-year cycle, meaning that we are in each country every 3 years, which makes it a bit complicated, but the objective is not so much that we help with the national recognition of the authors, but more their international recognition, so that they can be translated and read in Europe and beyond. So let me just, that's basically the prize. And maybe one extra information, this year we will organize the ceremony in Warsaw at the end of May. And we are very much hoping to organize it next year in Thessaloniki alongside the book fair. So I have two authors from two different editions, with me here. And if you allow me, I'll start with Lusine. You were the second shortlisted Armenian author. You were selected in 2021 with your second book, A Syrian Affair. You live in Erevan. You're a writer, a cultural anthropologist, and a translator. Well, that's what biography says anyway. Makis, you studied art history, social anthropology, so maybe we can have a conversation at some point, the difference between social and cultural anthropology.
I was about to say that, yeah.
Okay.
Totally, let's do that.
You're a journalist and a writer. It's your Deepfake is the third in the series of Michalis Kronos. Is that what else? Krokos, so yeah, sorry. And while Lusine was shortlisted by PEN Armenia, you were shortlisted by Greek Lit, which is the organization that promotes Greek literature around the world, and you were shortlisted in recently because it was 2025. So let me start with, maybe you want to comment on this social cultural anthropology, or?
Oh, it was a joke.
Oh, it was a joke. Okay, sorry. My second degree is good.
We can do that, but it'll take some time.
Okay, yeah. So maybe if we have some time at the end then. So Lusine, the three characters in your book, they're researchers from Armenia, and they've been recruited by an unknown American organization to conduct a research on Syrian and Lebanese Armenian. The book is a semi-documentary fiction with some element of science fiction, and it's set in pre-war Syria. Your book just been translated into Greek, so this means that the Greek audience here will be able to read you, so that's really nice. But could you, before they have that chance, give us some insight into your book?
Okay, just one very small correction. This book has been nominated in 2023. But previously in 21, there was another collection of short stories. So it's just like, to make make it clearer. And thank you to EUPL for supporting the translation, and to Vakrikan Publishing to publish it in Greek. After that, I will move to the book itself. Yes. It is about these three researchers who go to Syria to study Armenian community in Syria, and supposedly they are professionals and they know how to do their homework and how to do their work, but of course they don't expect into what kind of adventures they can embark while going to a country about what they really don't know much, and not putting much effort studying a bit before going to Syria, because they hope that their knowledge about Armenians would help them to do whatever research they are supposed to do. So it's just like setting the context, and it is not only about the situations these women get into, which is pretty much related to being reported to the security service as spying for American and Israeli organizations, and then I will not provide more spoilers because that is how the entire story then evolves. But it is also about, it plays into many things. So it plays into this post-Soviet so-called research thing, plus how the researchers themselves end up in a context where they don't know much what to do, and plus this whole spying thing happening to them, and plus their internal conflicts that they go through while experiencing this trip in Syria. So no more spoilers, because your question was what the book is about.
Yeah.
So that is more or less what it is about, but it's not a very linear story. It tells things, even though it has a plot, because it evolves throughout the road, but it's not purely like, it's not purely plot driven. It has many other parts into it also, because they, along the road, they interview different people, and the stories of these people also become part of the novel. So, generally.
Oops, no. Keep this one. I'll
Yeah,
use
and
that one.
just one more thing to add. I think even though now we live in a world which there are conflicts everywhere almost, and you feel like it is exploding, something new is exploding every time, I think it's interesting to read this now knowing what happened to Syria already. Like from the position of today, when we know what happened in Syria, it is even more interesting to read how it was before.
And would if you had written the book in today's with today's Syria, or different would it have been?
I can't say, because it was already written after the Syrian crisis. Yeah. So what happened? It happened before. The plot, the documentary plot was there, but it was already written after the conflict. So probably it would come up similarly.
So let's move from a war zone to a different type of war zone, that is Greece. So your main characters, Kokos, is a writer and an expert on Athens nightlife. I don't know if it's the same for you. And it observes its transformation with a mix of critique and resignation. It's been 4 years since his last book was published, and he searched for inspiration going through the city and watching Johnny Depp try in life. Can you just develop a little bit for the audience what they should expect about deepfake without spoiling the whole story?
Of course. I will also speak in English because, I mean, it's much easier. Otherwise, we would. Well, it's the third book of a trilogy, which I say it's a trilogy just because there are three. You know, we'll see. But it's a specific time in Greece. It's the post-crisis, which is of course a landscape that is not. The crisis is still there, but just we don't put it in terms of crisis anymore because, well, that crisis, the debt crisis, is over. All the others are still ongoing, and within this This period, I imagined this character, and I put him in the neo-noir codes, but in reality it's not that, because he's not a policeman, he's not a private eye, he's a writer himself, and therefore a sort of alter ego of me. He is a bit like me. And indeed, on this third one, he spends his time, he hasn't written in a very long time, and he spends his time watching live the Johnny Depp trial with his ex, and imagining that he might find inspiration there to write a book about the epoch, and maybe an anti-woke manifesto in his blurred mind that makes sense. It's very en vogue also. I mean, we have many writers who do that now, especially in France, actually. And anyway, he's lost. But reality will come in his face, so this prosecutor, this lady, Sofia Haritsi, will come at his doorstep and will propose him a job, in reality, to infiltrate an alt-right group, a Greek alt-right group, this alternative right, like far-right, but a bit more sophisticated, a bit more, not Golden Dawn stuff, but a bit more, sophisticated fascists. Well, yeah, there's a lot of, a great deal of them, everywhere. And he has to infiltrate them and become their writer of fake news and their professional troll in order to save a friend. That's a pretext. Of course, he accepts because he sees in that an opportunity to write a book and to start a career in what he calls gonzo literature, because all this vaguely speaks to him about this American author of the 60s and the 70s called Hunter Thompson, and how he had infiltrated back then a violent motorcycle group called Hell's Angels, and then made a book about it. So he says, I'm going to do the same. So yeah, it's great. I mean, there it is. And of course, very different and terrible things are going to happen to him, because it was a pretext, and he has been framed, and the rest is in the book.
Well, it makes us want to read it. I read in an interview that you said that this was Pope Noir work. Can you this Pope, and can you tell us what this Pope literature is, and how it?
Yeah, that's something that came to me with the first book, which was written in 2017-18, the first book of the series, always with that guy as a hero. And it's not about a genre. Pulp is not a genre. It's a way of writing. It's a way of using language. And in a way, it's something that is very related with the notion of crisis. Right after the crisis of all crises, 1929, the big crash in the United States, who were particularly affected, a literary style came, which was this thing that you didn't have to describe many things anymore, because nothing made sense. Society had changed so radically. You had to spend the whole book writing about each one's family situation, background, and that doesn't make any sense. So you had a cab driver who was a astronomist, and you didn't need to explain how that happened, because there was the crisis. And this style, which is dry, without adjectives, without many, it's just the facts, what's happening, always returned in times of crisis. In France, at the end of Trente Glorieuses, in Latin America a lot, in Italy, after those political violent events, etc. So it's a classic. So I said I will transpose this style, but in a Greek way, with Greek vernacular, which are the vernacular of my generation and actually my group of friends. That's how we talk. And I will create a Greek pulp, which is the real language of the Greek crisis. It's related with the notion of crisis. Yeah.
Interesting. Now moving to Lusine, and I mean, no longer speaking about style, but maybe about languages. You speak 3 languages, Armenian, English, and Russian. And obviously your language and the one you're writing it is Armenian. I was wondering this fluency in languages, how it affects your writing, and also you said something that sort of interests me, is that you thought, I don't know if you still think, that Armenian has, you were not sure that Armenian had the same capacity and richness as Russian, given it was not the language of the conventional power or authority. Do you still think it's the case?
I think in the interview, probably when I said it, I said I thought it didn't have capacity, so I tried to translate some Russian authors who had that language, and I ensured myself that Armenian has that capacity. So the interview actually I was giving, it was about that Armenian has that capacity because it already has a statehood also, probably. Because when you have statehood, your language develops in many other directions that it didn't have the opportunity to develop in. So the continuation of what I was trying to say is exactly about that the language now has this capacity. But because your question was about the language, I would like to come back to this particular novel, because in this novel it's my only work where I use 2 Armenian languages, Western Armenian and Eastern Armenian, because Syrian Armenians, they speak Western Armenian, and Armenians from Armenia, meaning these 3 women who go to conduct research, they speak Eastern Armenian. So I don't know how that came up in Greek, and I was even suggesting to the translator, maybe you could have used Cypriot Greek to show the difference between the languages. I don't know so how it is now, but actually in the Armenian, in the original Armenian version, I have used both Armenians to show the diversity of language and also of the communities that use this language. And plus, these Eastern Armenian researchers who are coming to Syria from the position of knowledge to conduct this so-called research, right? They also orientalize somehow this community they are going to study. They use, some of them particularly intensively use Russian because they are Russian educated, and they use Russian phrases in their communication with each other. But sometimes also some of them, for example, try to translate their, not, because they are Russian speakers, they try to translate whatever they could have said in Russian into Western Armenian, which sounds even more ridiculous. So the language plays here as well, and with respect to the first question, Armenian has the capacity of really having more this bureaucratic. It wasn't only about power, it was also bureaucratic language of Platonov particularly, because I was not sure that Armenian has this Platonovian language capacity. But then it turns out it does. So it is able to produce this bureaucratic language in fiction, which already, it surprised me when I was trying to kind of translate it for myself, even though there are translations available. I was trying to play with it to see how I would be able to do that. So Armenian has that capacity, but as I'm telling, Armenian has these 2 distinct branches, Western and Eastern Armenian, which for ones who are not fluent in either, could even, wouldn't, and if you are not sufficiently fluent in Eastern Armenian, there could be cases when you will not be able to understand Western Armenian even. So it has its own richness and diversity, and I don't know how it came out in Greek translation. And since we speak about language,
They'll have to judge by themselves.
Yeah. That would be interesting to check for those who speak Greek. Thank you for asking.
No, and staying with you, I mean, your work has frequently explored the motive of memory and trauma, and obviously in the context of the Armenian genocide and its effect on collective identity. And somehow this has a link with Makis' work, that you criticize the rigid ethnic or national self-perception. You advocate for a fragmented, fluid, ever-evolving and spongy identity in a patchy and fragmented world. I hope I found the right quote there. Yeah. And we live in a Europe which is more and more polarized, notably by the far right. We'll come back to that. But obviously your writing should be inspirational for a cohesive society. What I would like is to ask you is how helpful are you that the goals that this fluid identity can still exist in today's Europe?
It's a very good question, and I think I wouldn't speak exactly about fluidity, but what I would like to stress now here is this necessity to not really become very rigidly defined, because it would lean towards what we were speaking to, these fascist groups who kind of have this rigid, never changing, I don't know, essentialistic way of perceiving themselves sometimes, and which is becoming more and more problematic. So I think the more the possibility of really discussing these diversities that exist not only among different groups but among ourselves, then the more there is a possibility of really living in a more peaceful way, probably. I don't know, I am like now, maybe I am speculating about that, but that is my particular feeling, because much of my writing, even though, yes, that's true, it deals with tough issues, but it's not, it is trying to deconstruct this one master narrative that we have through bringing in more voices and more narratives, because I believe that more narratives and multiple histories are what make our coexistence possible, and this is what the Europe and world are facing now. The more and more difficult, it is more and more difficult to coexist, seeing what is happening. So for that we need to really have diversity of stories, diversity of narratives, and diversity of identities, cultures, perceptions, views, coming through these narratives and protagonists. Therefore, the literature has has very important role in this. It's through the literature that we can really understand these differences and live with differences, and not get into our limbo of only, I don't know, not flexible, unchanging, rigid self-definition and self-identification. So that's what I think.
You're slightly optimistic?
I am optimistic.
If more than slightly, maybe.
I am optimistic if we continue reading, because that's the main problem also there. And I believe that what is important, because we speak about translation, the role of translation is even much more important now, because the bigger languages, the bigger literatures kind of bring, in a way, again, one single perspective. Even though there is polyvocality within bigger languages and big language literatures told in bigger languages, right? But still, if we miss this translation from smaller positions, smaller places where we see the world, we describe the world, we somehow relate with that world, we miss this opportunity of having a world where coexistence is possible. So the translation is even more important.
We'll come back to translation afterwards, but because to me I'm not sure we can call him a hero, but the character of Makis' book is doing the opposite, is building fake news, maybe despite his will, but nevertheless he does that. And we are, I think we can all, unfortunately, we are all witness of the rise of the extreme right all over Europe. I suspect that we all seen the elections in the United Kingdom and the success of the Reform Party. And that is clear that there's been research that there's a very strong connection between far right and the spread of misinformation, and with radical right populism identified as a key driver in the creation and dissemination of fake news. You've identified the issue, but do you have any solution so that we can escape this endless cycle of distorting the truth and leading us straight into those regimes that we definitely don't want to live in?
Of course I do.
Wow. Okay, you're going to be the savior then.
Okay. Well, it's a huge subject, of course. Huh? I mean, it's also that thing that everyone is talking about. What's happening? What is all this? AI, fake, far right. There is a complex there, and that's immensely interesting in reality. Well, as far as fakes go, I'd say that the great success of a fake is that we want to believe in it. That otherwise it wouldn't work. And we want to believe in the fake even if sometimes, and most of the times, it's obviously a fake, whether it is an image or an information or a narrative. We want to believe in it because the reality, the true, is not satisfying, or it's extremely disappointing. And that's the whole thing. When Trump puts those images where he's like the Christ or all these things, people know it's not a picture. People know that. It's obvious. It's like an obvious fake with a huge success because people are fine with that. Because they say what the true is not like let's say the responsible media, the moderate, with lots of quotes, every word. The news are not what I want to see. They are the fake. The truth is the fake. So I will go with the real fake, which is obvious. I can recognize it, and because I like it. It's entertaining. It's nice. I like it. Now, far right does this thing that it feeds from they didn't do that in the 70s and the 80s. This is a totally different far right now, all over Europe. And that group does it too. And of course that group is modelized on real people in Greece, which are not niche. They're not on some cave, they're up in the daylight. We sort of know them. If you read the book, if you're a Greek, you will recognize who it is modelized on. So what those groups do, and what Farage does, and others in France and other places, Italy, is that they feed from the mainstream. They don't feed from extreme theories. They feed from the official media. The fact that Europe is threatened by millions and millions of Muslims that are coming to replace the white Christian population, which is a total fantasy, which is it's a conspiracy theory, actually, of a French book by this guy called Camus, of course, not Albert Camus, but what's his name? Renaud Camus. It's a total fantasy, yet they believe in it because they feel threatened for other reasons. And that book is very popular because the arguments go in the mainstream and not the other way around. So the problem with the fake is the truth. The problem with the far right is the mainstream. Now that's how I would summarize the thing. Of course, it's much more complicated than that.
But that's not a solution, though.
Well, we have to understand what's happening.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. No, of course, I don't have a solution.
But
My solution for me is to write this book and to create this character and find joy in it, you know. That's it. Create my own language, my own system of reality, and I wouldn't say exist in it, but the soul creation and the joy it brings me. I mean, it's a very personal thing. That's a solution for me. But then, since you ask a very complex question, I would say the importance of these things is to just sort of understand how this works.
I mean, we everywhere in Europe we are facing this crisis in literacy, which means that even if people do know that the image of Trump wanting to look like the Christ is not true, I mean that they have a difficulty to make distinction between what's true and what is fake and invented. But and one of the reasons is obviously that people read less and less critical. They have less critical thinking. So I'm going to come back to more easy topics, which is translation. You both have been shortlisted for the EUPL, and EUPL is not yet a very widely recognized prize at national level, and I don't think it drives sales like national prizes can, but I think it is attracting the interest of foreign publishers who are looking for authors maybe from less mainstream publishing countries. So I just wanted to hear you talk a little bit about the translation you're getting and what does translation brings to an author, even if in certain cases I suspect you don't read Greek and you're happy that your book has been translated, but why are you happy that your book has been translated?
I'm happy that my book has been translated because any translation helps to build new bridges and speak about new things. Because, for example, Greeks and Armenians have centuries long history, connection. Seemingly they know each other, but I highly doubt that they know about contemporary context as much as they know about history, for example. So I believe that translation helps to build bridges, and as I was trying to say, my belief is that the world needs this polyvocality, and as much you translate, as more conversation between cultures, between countries, between peoples become possible. So therefore I believe that translation is needed to know each other now, and not through the lenses you are used to learn about each other, because literature is more direct knowledge compared to any other knowledge you can get about culture, people, history even. Like it is really something that helps to speak, to know each other better. So I'm happy that I'm translated, but it's not only about me. I would be happy that more Greek authors, contemporary Greek authors, not classics, would have been translated into Armenian, and vice versa. More contemporary Armenian writers would have been translated into Greek, and I could tell the same about other languages as well. And it's also most writers tend to want to be translated into bigger languages like English or French, because then they assume more people would read their books and then they would get bigger audiences and so on. But I believe that it's not only about the size of the language, it's about genuinely really learning about each other through translation. And therefore I'm happy that I'm translated, and I'm happy that my other book, a collection of short stories which is more focused on current Armenian issues, also is being translated into Polish thanks to EUPL, and also into Georgian thanks to the Armenian government. So I believe that really translation is what makes people reading and translation is what makes people to understand each other better. But there is another issue you have already raised, this literacy and dropping literacy rates throughout the world. In Armenia, for example, the most recent survey showed that 30% of kids were not really able to understand simple texts, which wasn't the case before. And I think this is a warning sign how the reading and text-related culture is really decreasing worldwide. And still, literature is the thing that allows you to deeper understand and to have empathy or not empathy. Or, for example, with respect to your book, which I haven't unfortunately read, but based on what you have been telling, to understand probably more how these people happen, who are these extreme left about whom we speak, but we don't really know. Extreme right, I am sorry, excuse me. Or to even understand Trump better. So literature is the language that helps to really understand nuances better. It doesn't answer the questions, but it helps to see the nuances, and it helps in your inner search for not fake things, probably, or fake things.
Same question to you, Makis?
Thank you. Yes, translation is immensely important. Let's not pretend otherwise. I mean, especially for small languages, and of course I mean it, a small market, small number of speakers, and given also the fact that a very dynamic part of Greek society is outside of Greece. They had to leave 500,000 people left with the crisis, and I guess also Armenia is a traditionally diasporic people. I guess you also, I don't know in reality, but you have a small market, I guess,
it's smaller than Greek market.
Okay. She said smaller than Greece.
It's smaller than Greek market.
Well, that's sad. No, because I mean, smaller than Greece. Yes. No, it's a joke. But this book got lucky to be translated even before in Italian right away. It happened. It was very strange. This Elisabetta Guerrieri, who lives in Greece, in Athens, came to see me. She said, "I want to translate it immediately." Then came the shortlist of the EUPL. It had already started the series being translated in French, so it happened. But now, I mean, it's translated in English and it's out today, actually, and I haven't seen it.
Congratulations.
Yes, thanks, but it's thanks to this institution. And I hear that it might be translated in Albanian and also Armenian, by the way. So yeah, and it's a huge opportunity. Yeah, but then there was another part of your question that I don't remember.
No, just this has been helping you, but you just explained, I think, in reaching new territories. I have a personal hope that will never be realized, but nevertheless, is that when you go into a bookshop and you go in the travel section, that you have literature of each country next to travel books, so that not only you have the information about the museum you have to visit or whatever places you have to visit, but you have a voice from that country that makes you travel already before even you travel. But
usually you have some Harlequin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have mentioned it to some booksellers and never had a lot of success. If you have any question, it's time to prepare them now, but because I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your project, if you have any project in the making, in writing, and yes, what is it in terms of, do you wanna start, Makis, and then Lusine?
Well, it's plenty of projects, but I hope to make some of them happen. Maybe a continuation of this one, but with a pause now, because I'm writing something different involving science fiction. A specific genre of science fiction which is anticipation, actually, not like in a future that is really, really close, in the style of Black Mirror. And when and if I ever start again to work with this hero again, I would like to write a prequel of all these things. And because we know very few things about him in reality, but we do know that he has studied in France in his student years, like I have. And I would like to make a book about that period, which would make readers like understand the first trilogy a bit better, and probably put him in the years 2003 to 2005 in Paris, which was very condensated socially and politically. You had the uprising of the banlieue and the riots, the referendum for the Euro constitution, and the CPE, which was huge student mobilizations that made the Villepin government fall, and then the rise of Nicolas Sarkozy. So all this happened in France in 18 months in reality, which was a huge turmoil, and very, very interesting for our guy to be a student there. So that's a project. But it would be also an interesting study of his own language, which has to be different back then because he's not a writer yet. So maybe it will be a book that will not be written between quotes, but would be with a rougher language, or a more clumsy book. We'll see. Even more.
I am currently working on a really, really big multi-generational novel, which is trying to deal with most of the problems that we as Armenians living in Armenia had, starting from the, Second World War up until now. And it's also a global novel because it is set in different places. It is not happening in Armenia only, but it follows the same family throughout. That's what I'm working on now, and it's a huge project. It takes really forever. It feels like takes forever. And this year I got a grant from the Ministry of Culture of Armenia to finish it. So I'm supposed to finalize that novel by the end of this year. And which is good, it's that we are already in editing stage. I started it 8 years ago, so it's a really long process. And last year I was really lucky to get a fellowship for Literary Colloquium Berlin, where I focused on that novel and worked really hard. So hopefully it will come out next year. That's my current project. I don't know how successful, but I don't know how successful it would be with translation, because as bigger the book gets, it's harder to have it translated.
Is there anyone in the audience that has questions for Makis and Lusine? Okay, you don't have to be shy. Okay, if you don't, I think that we are more or less reach our time. As I mentioned in the beginning, on the 29th of May, there will be the new ceremony of the European Union Prize for Literature. Ever since we started, we have awarded the prize, because I think that everyone that is shortlisted is already a winner, because they have increased visibility at European and beyond level. We've awarded 2016 author from over 41 countries, because there are some countries like Turkey which has come and then left the entire program. It is, I think, for a lot of publishers, it's a way of discovering new voices and new words that are not always so visible on the market. So I would really encourage you to go on the site to get the various anthology. The anthology, it's always the language, the original language with an English translation. Obviously, we have to choose English because this is the language that we are more or less all able to have access to. But
thanks to Ireland.
Yes,
we still have Ireland.
Malta is also English as an official language, so we have two countries that allow us to keep English. I don't know, would do Esperanto maybe? Maybe.
Maybe not.
Sorry?
Maybe not.
Maybe not, yeah. So, yeah, I encourage you to look at the anthology and at the website and to look for authors. I know we have here a publisher, Nestoras, who's done it amply. I mean, he's probably one of our most fervent publisher that looking at EUPL authors and really bringing new voices into the Greek publishing landscape. So thank you so much. I don't know, for you, Makis, there will be a signature somewhere on your publisher stand? Or
Actually, yes, between 5 and 6 at Antipodes. It's not in this space, but it's on the other one.
So which pavilion it is? 13? Yeah, okay.
13, and I think they're on the stand 146 or something.
Okay, but it's 13, and then you walk along the arrays and
No, just the Greek.
and so at 5 o'clock you can meet with Makis and you, Lusine?
Do you remember? Our pavilion is downstairs, right under this place where we are sitting a bit. It's like 91, 92. So if you are interested, you can go down after the meeting.
So for Lusine, it's directly, yes, of course. So my friend Svetlo has a question.
No, I'm maybe one of the persons who read and know the books because involved as a jury in the both of you when we was nominated. But for me, my question is what it's mean in a positive way, European Union Prize for Literature and your nomination. Because there is a lot of things, works with writers, presenting them in a different book fairs. There is a special person in EUPL organization, Aurélie Buntor-Rouge, who works on this to popularize your works, and it's amazing. How you feel as EUPL writers, part of the EUPL family?
And for those who don't know, it's Svetlo. Svetlo is the soul of Bulgarian literature.
First of all, as already mentioned, it increases visibility, but not only in other places, even in your own country. It really increases your visibility being nominated for EUPL first. Then translation, obviously. Third, it's an amazing networking opportunity because you meet authors from other countries and then you embark into new projects. For example, if you keep in touch with different authors and speaking to them, you start visiting each other, organizing events together, discussing literature, and that's a really also great thing. Last year, for example, we went to Malta, different EUPL writers, and we had an event there. Maybe you weren't back then.
That.
It's because of the Brussels event. We got to know each other. So Brussels put us into the same panel. We got to know each other, and then it evolves. And then we have another event in Armenia, for example. We invite EUPL authors from Georgia or other countries, depending, like we did it with Georgia, but we can definitely do it with other EUPL countries as well. So it really not only increases visibility, not only provides translation opportunities, but also provides you with a bigger network and outreach. So I think it's a very, very good opportunity for any writer who really uses that opportunity.
We discussed that earlier.
Yeah, totally agree. Is that okay? Totally agreed. And Aurélie is a fantastic lady with all the organization and also organizing the debates. I mean, I had a debate, and table ronde with her in the Brussels Festival a month ago, or so. I'm a bit confused now with time, and it was great, and also works very well with invitations by bookstores. I was recently in Strasbourg, invited by this very, very nice place called Tache Noire for a presentation of the French edition of Deepfake, and the EUPL financed that, which wouldn't have been possible because we're talking about small bookstores, they want to do, they're very creative, but they need encouragement. Same thing, have another bookstore event in Toulouse, I think, in June, and so on and so forth. This is fantastic. You meet people who are in the profession, who then will help local communities. I mean, let's not forget, little bookstores, independent bookstores are custodians of democracy in reality, much more than big structures and all that. So, in that sense, these are really little miracles that can happen with events like that.
Just to add something, I forgot, it doesn't apply to me anymore, but for example, in Armenia, the government now has established a scholarship, a stipend for writers being nominated for EUPL. Not only for EUPL, for different prizes, and for example, if someone is nominated for Booker, it would be higher, but for EUPL, they would get nearly 800 euros a month for an entire year. So I think for a writer who doesn't really have a regular income, that's already a good thing.
Well, I'm happy we are able to do little miracles. It's better than and I started speaking about religion and then talking of miracles. I'm quite happy. Thank you for attending this session. Please read European authors. This will develop your empathy. This will help you understand the issue that we are all confronted, but maybe with slightly different angle. I mean, Read Europe is something that is really enlightening, and I wish to thank very much Makis and Lusine for being here. I hope your books will be read by a lot of people, and thank you for attending this session.